Namaskar, all of you. So, we are in the fourth session on education in yoga, education about yoga, education through yoga. In the last session, I made a concluding remark that we will be dealing with another major misconception prevalent in the world of yoga. That is, the yamas and niyamas are moral, ethical principles. They are moral, ethical practices suggested by Patanjali. At the outset, let me make a statement that these are not moral, ethical principles. Patanjali is not suggesting moral, ethical norms to be practiced. As a matter of fact, anyone, you and me, can also stipulate moral, ethical principles to be practiced, ethics, morality to be practiced in whatever realm of life. Why do we need Patanjali? So, therefore, we should know that Patanjali is not trying to suggest that moral, ethical principles are the first step in yoga. Because of the fact of the matter is that if we want to be good human beings, morality and ethicality should be practiced by each and every one. If we do not practice those, we are nothing but barefooted animals. One of the factors which keeps human beings as human beings is that the mankind practices morality, ethicality, and should be practiced. Whether you do yoga or you don't do yoga, morality, ethicality must be practiced. Then why Patanjali mentions yamas and niyamas, what is called as restraints and observances? Then we know the 5 yamas, the 5 niyamas, and these are normative principles that anyone can instruct, anyone can suggest. But why I am making a statement that these are not moral, ethical principles is for simple reason that in the Darshanik convention, in the convention of Indian philosophical system, there are set columns on which the expounder must delineate. Now when Patanjali comes to Ashtanga Yoga, actually the whole Ashtanga Yoga, it is called as Dharma, Niti, Achar, Dharma, Niti aspects. Achar, Dharma, Niti, Pranali. So Patanjali has to offer something as a basic principle of practices and sadhanas, and they are called Achara, Niti, Dharma, Pranali. In English, that is rendered as ethico-religious practices. Now, ethico-religious practices are not only yamas and niyamas. All the 8 aspects are included, or they are composing the entire Dharma, Achara, Niti, Pranali. In English, again I repeat, although it is a faulty rendition, ethico-religious principles of yoga. Not only yamas and niyamas, but even asana, pranayam, pratyahar, dharana, dhyan, samadhi, they all compose the Achara, Dharma, Niti, Pranali of Patanjali's system. So it's not just yamas and niyamas, but all the ashtangas are part of Achara Dharmaniti Pranali. Oh, because these are all practices. Therefore, yamas and niyamas are not moral, ethical principles and practices, because all the normative philosophers have suggested this. Many of them have, from the top of the voice, have told us, beseeched us, or sometimes by fiat, that morality, ethicality must be practiced. But with what avail? We can be told that we must practice morality, ethicality. But in the practicality of life, do we really practice it? Can we really practice it? Does it become major consideration for us? And therefore, all the heads of religions in the world have said about morality, ethicality, that everyone should practice. But then we know what has happened. So we don't have to bring in Patanjali to tell us the same thing, that you must practice morality, ethicality. So even if you are not doing yoga, if you are in business of life activity, if you are in practicality of life, yet you must be practicing morality, ethicality. That will be, or that should be actually, a signature condition of a human being, a good human being. Otherwise we are barefooted creatures. The point is, the ethico-religious principles of Patanjali circumscribe all the Ashtangas and not just the two, Yama and Niyama. Now, what is ethico-religious system? See, in our convention, we have philosophy, and then we have what is called Tattva Jnana, and we have Dharma, which is rendered as religion. So, in systems such as Patanjali, even the systems of Kapila, Sankhya, Kanada, Vaisheshika, Nyaya of Gautama, or Jaimini Mimamsa, or Badrayana Mimamsa, or any other philosophy. There are so many philosophies in Indian philosophical systems. Each one of those have mentioned something as Dharma, Achara Dharmaniti Pranali, which again I repeat in English, it is religion, which is not a proper rendition. So bear in mind, yamas, ahimsa yama to samadhi, it is all ethico-religious principles of yoga. It is not just yamas. And these are all anga, these are all limbs, they are all integral aspects. Do you mean to say that yamas and niyamas are to be practiced out in society, not while one is practicing asana, pranayam, dharana, dhyan? So it is not only a social phase, it doesn't have only a social phase, that while you are in social situation that you must practice morality, ethicality. When you are isolated and when you are going to do yoga, so there are yamas and niyamas in all the other aspects as well. Usually we bother about what is correct asana and what is correct pranayam, what is right asana, what is right pranayam. We don't try to understand what is yamaniyama of asana, what is yamaniyama of pranayam, what is yamaniyama, how does it manifest in asana, pranayam, dhyan, japa. Guruji made it a point to explain all these things. He would explain you yamas and niyamas in your Trikonasana. He would explain you ahimsa, satya, asteya, brahmacharya, aparigraha in Trikonasana. He would explain shaucha, santosha, tapas, swadhyaya, ishwar pranidhan in your Trikonasana, Tadasana. We did not take clue that yama niyamas also come in asanas, pranayama, and in the theory of yoga and philosophy of yoga, they come up to samadhi. They will manifest differently. See, what is your morality when you are out in your workplace? And what is your morality when you are back home with your family? You have something called as business ethics. Now, the business ethics comes only in business. But when you are out from business framework, you are back home, do you still have the same ethics that you practiced in your business place? So, the ethics will be changing with reference to your workplace, your occupation, where you are, what are you doing. So there is one kind of ethics while you are in office place, another kind of ethics when you are in your business place, another kind of ethics when you are in your family, another kind of ethics when you are with your wife and children. So therefore, again, it is an open architecture. Similarly, we have to see that yamas and niyamas, morality, ethicality comes differently in our asanas, pranayam, dharana, dhyan, samadhi, or whatever practices we are putting in. They will manifest differently, they will come differently. Are we studying it? Now, as I just now said, that Indian philosophical system has something called as philosophy. Now, what is its philosophy? Philosophy is that which divulges reality. A human being should be seeking realities. And the philosophy is that which divulges reality. Then what is dharma? Dharma is that which helps one realize. Philosophy will divulge, the tattva gnyan will divulge, and dharma will make you realize the realities. So all the practices of yoga on any plane, body, mind, breath, senses, organs, psyche, consciousness, intellect, emotion, it is for truth seeking and it is for realization of the truth. So dharma is that which helps one realize the realities, while philosophy will only divulge the realities. That is why dharma and tattva gnyan are important aspects in structuring Indian philosophical system. These are two major considerations in Indian philosophical system as to what is tattva gnyan, what are realities, what are absolute realities, what are relative realities, absolute realities, ultimate realities, and then dharma comes for one to realize. They are realized within oneself. Inside, they are realized within. All the realities are realized within. And dharma comes for that purpose. That's why in English they call it ethico-religious system. And note this, that it includes from ahimsa to asampragnat samadhi. If you break up all the ashtangas, you have 5 of yamas, 5 of niyamas, then you have asana, then you have pranayama of 3 types, bahya pranayam, abhyantar pranayam, stambha pranayam. Then there is pratyahar. Then there are dharanas, several kinds of dharanas, several kinds of dhyanas, which you will come across in the texts of yoga. And then there are samprajnat, asamprajnat samadhis. All put together is included in dharma, achara dharma niti pranali. Achara dharma niti. Achara is conduct. Niti dharma. Niti is ethics. Ethicality. And what is dharma? Dharma. If you have heard, Guruji often said, what is dharma? Dharma is not religion, because religion is body of faith. You have to have faith in what religion postulates. So it is locus. Any religion in the world is locus for faith, where people will place their faith. They believe in it. They will believe in it. So in other words, religion is sustained by mankind. If nobody believes in that religion, if nobody absolutely believes in that religion, will it stay on? It won't stay on. So religion is sustained by its followers. Religion is sustained by those who place faith, those who invest faith in it. They sustain the religion. So religions need to be sustained. What about dharma? Very etymological meaning of dharma, which comes from single lettered root called dhru. Dhru means to sustain. So dharma is that which sustains us, and religion is that which we sustain. Mankind sustains the religion, and dharma is that which sustains us. How does it do this? You have often heard from Guruji, which is a very popular, famous definition of dharma. One who is falling, one who has fallen, one who is about to fall, one who may fall, the one which sustains, that person is a dharma. So dharma sustains the falling person, the fallen person. So that is what the dharma is. Therefore, it is not proper to translate dharma as religion and religion as dharma. Dharma is a cult. Any dharma is a cult. The religion is not a cult. Dharma is not a cult. Dharma is there for even non-living things. Do we have a religion for non-living things? The religion only comes from mankind. Even it doesn't come to subhumans. Religion does not come to animals, cattle, beasts, insects, worms, birds. There is no religion to them. However, they have a dharma. Why? Because dharma is a wider concept. Let us not mix up with religion and dharma. Let us not call religion as dharma and dharma as religion. Let us look at the dharma as to what dharma is. When it comes to dharma, there is something called as swabhava dharma, guna dharma. So the vernacular people will be familiar with this, guna dharma. Guna dharma comes to even inert matters. There is dharma to element of earth, element of water, element of air, element of fire, element of space. They all have dharma. What is that? They are inherent characteristic. Intrinsic characteristic. Inherent characteristic is their dharma, is their guna dharma. So all matters have guna dharma. The word dharma has come there. They will never give it up. The earthness of earth will never be separated. The waterness of the water from water will never be separated. So water has waterness, earth has earthness, air has airness, fire has fireness, space has spaceness. That is their dharma, that is their guna dharma. So even they have dharma in the form of guna dharma. Now they are all inert, yet they have dharma which is called guna dharma. Insofar as living creatures are concerned, they have svabhava dharma. So this word is also, one is familiar with it, vernacular, svabhava dharma. The svabhava dharma is there even for bacteria, insect, worm, bird, animals, cattle, beasts. They all have svabhava dharma. If they give up their svabhava dharma, they will not be sustained. They will perish. If the snake or cobra gives up snakeless or cobra nest, it will perish. If the tiger or lion give up tiger nest or lion nest, they will perish. So if they divorce with their dharma, they will cease to exist. So they must have their svabhava dharma. The tiger must be having tigerness, lion must be having lionness, the snake must be having snakeness, cobra must be having cobraness, insect must be having insectness. Sparrow, if the sparrow gives us sparrowness, you know sparrow is a very timid bird. It is a small, tiny bird and a timid bird. If it gives up timidity, it will perish. So, if the sparrow gives up timidity, it will perish. If it maintains timidity, it will flourish. So, the timidity of sparrow sustains sparrow. That is svabhava dharma of sparrow. So, dharma is there for even creatures. There is no religion to creatures. There is dharma to creatures. There is no religion to inert matters, but there is dharma to inert matters. So let us not confuse between religion and dharma. Coming to mankind, for mankind, what is dharma? Dharma is duty-mindedness. If you want to be a better human being, you must be duty aware. You must be having duty consciousness. You must be duty conscious. You must be having duty conscience. If you don't have it, you are not human being at par even. Let us not see the exaltation. So we will fall from being human beings if we do not have duty-mindedness. So duty-mindedness is dharma. So for mankind, it is mentioned something called as svabhava dharma. Each one of us have a svabhava, a personalized characteristics. And we live by that. We thrive by that. So svabhava dharma comes to man also, human being. Then niyata dharma. We have certain bounden duties. Without reference to time, space, situation, we must adhere to it. A good human being will not compromise there. One who is not a good human being will compromise in time, space, situation. The duty-mindedness about one's bounden duties, that is called niyata dharma, that cannot be left aside in any situation, in any scenario. Then there is something called as vihita dharma. Vihita. Hita means good. Adhering to what is good for me. Sometimes what is right to me is also relative. Because I am here, this is right for me to do. Had I not been here, doing this would not have been right. So there are relative aspects where we have the intelligence to identify that I must do this here. This is my duty here. This is my duty now and here. This is my duty because it is in this time space I am now. Therefore, it is a bounden duty for me. Had I not been in this time and space dimension, then it would have not been there as duty. So mankind is given intelligence to ascertain what is my right duty now. That is called Vihita Karma, which will be good for me. So Nihita Karma tells us about what is good for you, where and when. Adhere to that. Niyata Karma, where is good for you, and not only good but right for you, anywhere, anytime, any situation. So that is what Dharma is. So, in Ashtanga Yoga, you should know what is bounden duty. What is my absolute duty by being in any practices of yoga? Could be asana, pranayama, meditation, dhyan, whatever you might be calling it. And what is my duty because of the condition that I am in? I have this condition, therefore it is my duty to do this. Had the condition been different, then I would have had another duty identified. So we must have this flexibility according to Dharma. What is right and what is good. We must be able to make a proper blend of good and right. Merely going for good will not be ultimately good. Merely going for right will be also not ultimately good. So it's a weftage. Like a cloth is a fabric of horizontal, vertical weaves. Dharma says you must have weave of Niyata Karma, Vihita Karma. Niyata, bounden duty. Vihita, which is based on relative facts, relative conditions. So absolute conditions and relative conditions, both are to be considered, and then there is a weave. So it is not just moral ethical principle that you usually identify in yamas and niyamas. It is circumscribing entire Ashtanga Yoga. That is why Ashtanga Yoga is called ethico-religious practices, ethico-religious principles of yoga, and not just yamas and niyamas. So let's try to reform our idea about yamas and niyamas. Finally, I say, in case of morality, ethicality, whether you are in yoga or not in yoga, whether you do yoga, whether you don't do yoga, should you not be in morality, ethicality framework? Is there any scope to break that framework? Is it good to be breaking the framework of morality, ethicality? Therefore, that goes without saying. Now, when something goes without saying, why should Patanjali say that? That's why Patanjali doesn't say that. But we have wrongly construed yamas and niyamas as moral ethical principles, which all the religious heads, all the normative sciences have prescribed, advocated. But we know very well that all that is in vain. Patanjali doesn't want to do that. He doesn't do it. So try to have reconsideration of what are yamas and what are niyamas. If they have to be coming in, not only in social reference but also in personal reference unto myself while in asanas or higher practices, what are the parameters of morality, ethicality. It is one parameter in asana, another parameter in dhyana, meditation. So that's how yamas and niyamas have come. It is not just for morality, ethicality number one, then asana, then pranaya, then pratyahara, then dharana, then dhyan, then samadhi. If you construe that way, it is lack of education. That's why I'm telling you, get educated. Let us get educated about the precepts or the treatise of Patanjali. So the entire Ashtanga Yoga is ethico-religious principle, loosely translated. I don't approve of it. That is in the modern language, whereas in the classical language, Achar, Dharma, Niti, Pranali. Achara is your conduct. How do you conduct? How do you have your conduct when you are practicing asanas, practicing pranayam, practicing dharana, jnana, samadhi? So we should know the distinction here. Like how do you conduct yourself out on the streets, out in society, and back home, and while you are totally isolated in your own bedroom? Do you mean to say morality, ethicality doesn't come when you are isolated? It is a form of morality, ethicality when you are unto yourself. It is another form of morality, ethicality when you are out in society. So let's try to reconsider this. Let's try to do some brushing on our idea, notion, concept of yamas and niyamas. I think that should be enough for this lesson. Namaskar.
You spoke about religion and dharma, and you differentiated that. A lot of students have questions about, can you differentiate karma and dharma? It's a question that commonly comes to you. Is this the time to revise it, or is that a separate lesson?
No, you can do it. Here comes a question to distinguish between karma and dharma. See, dharma, as I said, it is conduct. What is your conduct? Can you say the conduct is totally different than my act? Karma is your act. And the conduct gives a framework, a culture to your karma. So karma is what you do. Dharma will tell you what you should do. What you should do, what is right, what is correct, and what is good for you, ultimately. Which I said about Vihita Karma. Vihita Karma tells you what is ultimately good. So while you are in karma, this perspective must be taken into consideration, that what I do should be ultimately good, if not immediately good. So ultimate good must be considered while you are in a karma, in any act. That's why the joint word is a karma, dharma is a joint word. Karma is also constituted by your intrinsic gunas, sattva, rajatama. Guna karma. So karma has sattva, rajatama. Dharma too has sattva, rajatama. So that the combination of karma, dharma will be coming in. Your dharma will depend upon your disposition, your consciousness caliber, conscience caliber. On a lower calibration of your conscience, you think something is right, something is perfect. But when you come up from there, then you understand what I deemed as right was not really right. So there will be reappraisal when you go on higher level of consciousness. So karma, dharma, again, these are weave. Dharma is all pervasive within us because it is sustaining us. And the karma is also incessant thing. You will all the time be in karma. If you look at the precept that comes in Bhagavad Gita, not even a moment would pass in akarma. Not even a moment would pass in non-doing, in non-act. Some kind of act will be going on. Even if you are fast asleep, some act is going on. If it is not your act, something in you is acting. Your heart is functioning, your lungs are functioning, your autonomous system is functioning. So your things are functioning, and are you not accountable for your things? Therefore you are in karma even while you are fast asleep, because autonomous system is functioning, digestion is functioning, metabolism is functioning, and they are all yours. So you can't say, I won't take responsibility for mine. I will be only responsible for me and not mine. Like parents are responsible for their children. We are responsible for ours. Our body, our mind, our autonomous system, our involuntary system. The karma doesn't leave you even on the point of death. Because when there is that point, on the point of death, I have often said, the busiest moment in one's life is the last breath. Because the trial balance of our karmas will be drawn, balance sheet will be drawn, and it will decide at that moment where are we going to head based on our karmas in that life, and will be immediately given passage for transmigration. Our passage commences right away from our death, from the moment of death. We are busy, what is called as eschatological migrations, transmigrations. So the immigration like thing in international journeys, here there is transmigration. So we will be busy in that. The vehicle to be going, where to be going, destination where to be going. So ticket will be issued on the point of death. Visa will be given on the point of death. Passport will be issued on the point of death. And we will be proceeding right from our moment of death. Immediately we proceed for eschatological movements. So even death doesn't stop for activity. Comatose doesn't stop. We are unconscious, but still we are living. If we are living, autonomous system is functioning. Breathing is going on. So some function is going on. Karma doesn't leave us. It doesn't leave us even for a moment. Karma will be going on constantly. How do we carry out karma? Unless we are sustained, will we carry out karma? We must be sustaining, we must be living. If we don't live, how are you going to carry out your karma? So dharma keeps you sustained. And because you are sustained, the karma is on. So dharma karma are again well related. And therefore, in karma, if you have dharma consciousness, what is right for me, what is ultimately good for me. If this consideration is there, our karma will be reformed. The petty things like selfishness will not creep in, will not spoil the karma. Otherwise, they can all spoil our karma. If you have ulterior motives, selfish motives, self-centric motives, then that's going to spoil our culture of karma. Dharma will not allow that. Therefore, karma dharma are mutually related. Again, it is a weftage, like a textile, horizontal, vertical threads. It's a weftage. Weave. Dharma, karma again have a weave. If the weave is not proper, the cloth is not strong. So if the weave of the two is not proper, our life is not proper, not strong. So the weave must be proper. That's why dharma and karma are again should be considered in a joint manner, composite manner. Because achara is dharma. Achara prabhavo dharma. Achara is your conduct. Conduct means what you do. Therefore, they are very much related to each other. Hope that is sufficient. Thank you.